Hey guys, before we begin, I just want to give a quick shout out to my patrons, Michael Scott, Elias Erasmi, Robin, and Cameron Hutt. Thank you all so much. Your support ensures that my own personal cataclysm is held at bay another day. The world of Krynn is now on the precipice of ruin. The world has been under the sway of the nation of Istar and its mighty king priests for centuries. With their powerful divine magics, Krynn seems to be in an endless golden age. But as these theocrats sought ever greater power, one among them attempted to ascend beyond his mortal trappings into the realm of godhood. The gods grew angry at the audacity of this mortal king. Who was he to grasp divinity for himself? The gods in their wisdom sent 13 warnings, omens of the devastation that would befall the world should the king priest not cease his misguided ambitions. First did the trees weep with blood. Second was the great storm, torrential rain, booming thunder, and violent bolts of lightning, which battered the capital of Istar for 13 days, bringing floods and devastation to those without protection. Third were the fires, 13 fires consuming 13 villages, each one closer to the home of the king priest than the last. Despite all efforts to stop the flames, with water brigades and magic, nothing could snuff out the blaze until its path had been burned black. It only stopped at the gates of the capital. The fourth warning took the form of wild beasts. Hunters would encounter deer and wolf that spoke with the voices of men, warning of a disaster that would befall the world. Then came the nightmares. Citizens of Istar saw their world in flames. They saw men butcher one another, and the dragons of legend soaring overhead to swoop down and feast upon hapless mortals. The sixth warning was the rise in the number of undead within the tombs and graveyards of Istar, consecrated grounds where blessing should have prevented the dead from rising again. Then came the cyclones, which churned the skies and racked the gleaming temple of the king priest. The eighth and ninth warnings were the poisoning of the rivers and huge numbers of dead fish that floated in the putrid water. The river was undrinkable for 13 days. The 10th warning was a long night, where the sun did not rise for 13 days. The 11th warning. Rats swarmed in impressive numbers, devouring the stored food in the granaries, bringing small bouts of famine. Then did the mighty clerics and mages of Istar find that their magics would not come to them. No spell, no prayer, no request for a blessing was answered. Not even the simplest of cantrips could be conjured by the mighty clerics of Istar. The final warning came in the form of 13 mortal heroes. They claimed to be emissaries from the gods, with a message to the king priest. Stop the ritual of ascension before it is too late. They were all dismissed as madmen and heretics. The king priest had ignored the warnings of the gods and their mortal servants. All their signs had been misinterpreted as the work of darkness. The ritual would continue. As the ritual reached its apex, with a vortex of potent magical energy swirling among the king priest, the gods at last acted in full. They first whisked away their most faithful followers to spare them from sharing in the king priest's punishment. The clouds split and turned a blazing purple as a mountain of unnatural fire fell from the sky. The fist of the gods, reaping wrath and ruin upon the nation that had abused their gifts and ignored their creeds. The nation of Istar and all who remained were destroyed in this apocalypse. In one fell swoop, the most powerful nation in the history of the world was wiped off the map. The massive crater left by the god's wrath filled with water, washing away the rubble and drowning the hubris of the king priests. The Blood Sea, as it is now called, splits the continent of Ansalon in two. But other kingdoms were not spared. They too were punished for the sins of the king priest. The aftershocks of Istar's punishment caused devastation the world over. Coastlines shifted drastically, drowning entire provinces. Unnatural purple fire blazed across the world, rousing monsters of all kinds to untamable fury. As the dust of the Cataclysm settled, the gods abandoned the world of Krynn. No more would they answer the prayers of the few mortals that still lived. Holy persons and clerics wept as their divine powers went dark, and the voices of their gods fell silent. In time, even the names of the old gods were forgotten. The era following the Cataclysm was one of utter chaos. For 3 centuries, all surviving cultures and ecologies were radically altered. Famine and plague swept the lands. Mass migrations of men and beasts caused great strife in the natural world. Bandits and marauding war bands outnumbered the civilized people. Miraculously, the Knights of Solamnia survived this end of days. Though their strength was greatly diminished, they might have brought order to the continent of Ansalon once more. But their part in Istar's rise to power led them to be distrusted and persecuted across the world. They were even driven out of their own homeland as traitors. To this day, there are many who hold this old knightly order as responsible for the Cataclysm. As the nations of men fell into disarray and the world burned, the elves used old magics to conceal their borders, and the dwarves of Thorbarden withdrew into their deep tunnels, refusing aid to any refugees. And in the twilight of civilization, monsters found opportunity. Trolls and orcs roamed where centuries before they would not dare, and a new nation of hobgoblins and ogres grew in the north. It was truly the time of darkness. As the centuries passed, the worst effects of the Cataclysm waned. The seas and winds would calm. The land at last began to heal. Though the mountain dwarves and woodland elves kept their borders shut tight, many other nations began to rebuild. Year by year did civilization return to the world. Adventurers went out to seek lost knowledge, map the new world, and drive wandering monsters back. As society re-emerged, the most painful truth was confirmed. The gods were gone. The clerics, whose divine magics once brought the world to heal, had vanished. Some remain devout, convinced the gods will return. Others seek comfort in new religious orders, crafted by charlatans and zealots. But most would dismiss the very idea of gods entirely. In this new world, devoid of divine guidance and immortal insight, truth was replaced with conjecture. The Cataclysm was over. Gods or no, the mortals of Krynn would find a way to live. But in the far corners of the world, within the rumbling belly of a volcano, an ancient evil stirs. The kingdoms of mortals are weak. The gods have abandoned them, and their most powerful heroes now exist only in the pages of storybooks. The chains that once bound the greatest evil in history begin to buckle and shatter. The Dragon Queen has returned.
Thank you for watching.
If you enjoy this type of content, then leave a like and consider subscribing. Most of you who watch my stuff aren't subscribed, and I'd hate for y'all to miss what I've got planned, plus it's totally free, so hit that subscribe button and enjoy. And before you go, I've got one thing to ask you. Does your party want special treasures, but you don't want to just give it to them? And also, you don't want to draw the maps yourself? No worries. RPG Stories has a Kickstarter for that very specific problem. Treasure hunting gives you several printable maps and quest lines for your party to work their way through and make them feel like they've earned that deck of many things. It's compatible with any fantasy tabletop game, so if you prefer old D&D or Pathfinder, you can still enjoy treasure hunting. There's 1 day left in the Kickstarter, so click that link below and get your maps today. Cheers!